Alright, so first we're gonna do some fermentation, and then we're gonna go into vagus nerve, and then we're going to go into a whole host of things, including an answer to this individual's question, which is Nicola from Galway, Ireland. Hi. You said, hey, I love macadamia nuts pretty much, but I can't eat them. Can I ever eat them again? We'll go into that as well. So, here, rapid fire. So, miso is around room temperature, is the best. For sourdough, you do want to cover it with a cloth and then some plastic, usually, after scoring or during scoring. It's better to cook higher at a lower duration. So, because apparently the heat expansion at the beginning is very necessary, and you do want to cover it for about half the time. With the Dutch oven, there's also cloche. You could do a stone and then a steel ball on top, so get creative with it. You do want to cool at room temperature. You don't want a flat fan or any sort of fridge, because when it cools slower, it gets more of that gelatinization, redistribution to be even, and a fan kind of interrupts that critical process. So this is interesting. When you are, there's a term, adrenal fatigue. It's pretty much if there's stress, you get stressed out even over very little things, and you lack energy, etc., and you can really crash. Salt really helps with that for some reason. And why? Mainly because if you have low salt, you're going to have really low salt. So the salt, if it's low, you pretty much waste more and more salt. And salt is necessary for everything, like nerve function. For instance, the HPA-axis, so your vagal tone goes down when you don't have salt. Everything starts to go down nerve-wise, but especially the vagus. Because of this, pretty much says you salt waste. And then also, because you have salt going out, you have less liquid. Less liquid leads to more problems like orthostatic hypotension, which you stand up and pass out, and also this fatigue that's relieved by salty food. So it definitely helps a lot getting salt. And a lot of it, I think it's like 3,000, 4,000 milligrams isn't out of the blue for sodium. It is a lot of people do very well with that amount of salt, and if you look at medical journals, 3,000 milligrams, less than that actually had more chance of cardiovascular complications. So, and that's where Japan is, usually 4,400 milligrams. Most of the blue zones are at least 2,500, 3,000, they're around that. So it's a healthy range. You definitely don't want too little salt. And depression, it seems to be the root cause to be somewhere in the gut and somewhere in the HPA-axis, primarily driven by the gut, but we know from MCAS individuals that you can actually regulate. Let's say you react to avocados. If you do certain, breathing, like humming, gargling, singing, massages, you can actually eat the avocado and not react. So this kind of helps in take this chronic inflammation down, which then we know from CFS and fibromyalgia patients that if you address the stress, and especially any emotional stress or inflammation, so I think half of it is probably emotional stress, half of it is probably like gut inflammation. If you address that, you solve the problem. And then again, no surprise. So Crohn's, I think, has a 92% comorbidity with depression, which is why, again, I think mainly based off this, and these are downstream, like neurotransmitter, social stressors could impact this, so they are very important. But I think doing this can rewire the social stressors to be not stressful. hell to even be fun. So it's mainly these four, and I think it's mainly in the gut, but the gut can be controlled by, yes, clean food, so what's entering, but how your body reacts to it. And that will take care of this. Okay, so that's that. Now, we'll get to that. Oh, actually, we are going to want to do vagus first. So, in the previous video, we covered a lot of vagus, what works for me at least a lot, and we added on to that. So I think we were at around, so we added more acupressure points. It's where they are. So like listed here, so like 20, which would be right in the middle of the numbers, so kind of like right there on the hand. And then looking here, I think we covered up to there, so 16. So you can tap the underneath your belly button with 5 fingers like this. Also tapping with 2 fingers going inwards on your belly button, like inside your belly button, helps. Not even that hard. There's a video of a woman doing it where she's really, you don't have to go that hard. It works either way. She says hard is better, so all great if you can go harder. Run it. So there was an Asian man who did a video where you pretty much envision energy or chi starts to smile, and you kind of radiate that relaxation downwards through your navel, through the bottom of your feet into the ground. It works great. I think it's one of the strongest ones, that and deep breathing, letting all of it out, everything, even when your lungs are empty, keep going. So that. Laughter kind of works. If it's fake, it doesn't really work that well. If it's authentic, you have to laugh a lot for modest gains. So this slanted M kind of position where you have the hands pointed opposite of the neck, and then you go the neck this way, and then the hands go this way, back and forth. It's pretty good. It's similar to one of the other ones here, the nerve glide, where you do that head motion. Yeah. Back of skull intersection with another woman was talking about, it's like right the base of your skull to just 1 finger right. If you press there and go outwards and then inwards, and you can do it at the same time. So both hands press, go outwards, and then slowly go inwards, slowly go outwards. It does wonders. Apparently it does something to the optical nerve. It's great. It relaxes a lot and helps with the vagus. Humming, I talked about that, but hum from the bottom, so into your legs. Like if you can hum at the very, like at least a foot below your navel, that is the best. Not up here. It's good, but there is way better. You're chewing, so if you are tasting food, which is important, there's people who have lost taste, either fully or partially. If you can taste food and you really chew and focus on the food, some call it mindful eating, but really focus, that will really get the vagus nerve going, as opposed to looking at your phone, not paying attention to the taste, the texture, etc., the smell. You can do progressive muscle relaxation on the gut. You don't have to do progressive muscle, because the tightening and the loosening, it works great for a lot of people. I just focus on loosening so you can relax. If you do exercise and you have contracted and relaxed the muscle, just grabbing that relaxation feeling and then just doing that pretty much anywhere on the body, but especially the gut, helps a lot. Yeah, so that's that. And then going into a lot of the ChatGPT stuff from way back, but it is helpful, and I want to cover it, including the answer. So here you have we can start from the top. So this is apparently in a movie, Green Mile, great movie. There was an individual, and I wanted to know what happened. Apparently he took an illness, and then this guy took an illness from this man through his hand and then released it. I know in Asia Chi, you can definitely take it out. There's I think John Chang. There's a Mel Gibson interview where he mentions John Chang or Chi Guru do this with his illness. So sometimes I know it's great. Like we're like, oh, it's a movie, it's great. There may be some reality into that. So I was just curious what was going on here, but. Can you gain weight by exercising alone? No. Usually you exercise, you want to eat more, and you gain weight from eating more. Usually resistance helps you gain weight. Just how it works with your appetite. Cardio usually makes you lose weight or stay steady. So just, that's that. You can get so iPhone passwords the Apple passwords are actually your Safari passwords. So you can export them and then share that computer. It's an open file, like open text. So you will plain text. There's no encryption. So what you want to do is you probably want to share it safely and then encrypt it right away. iPhone, there is if you can't do this, the side button volume up for whatever, there is assistive touch. It's really cool. There's a floating button on your screen. You click it, and then you can literally click a few menu options very quick and take screenshot. While you're on a call, it works. You don't have to click any buttons on the side, etc. Yeah, you can encrypt via LibreOffice Calc, and it's usually the first and second out of 5 checkboxes. Okay, chewing, very important. Chewing for digestion because it gets saliva, and here are some of the numbers. You really up most macronutrient digestive, like how much gets to you if you chew thoroughly. That's why it's mindful eating, take your time, but also chew thoroughly. And taste does send out, neurotransmitters that make saliva. So the more you enjoy the food, the more you're going to digest it well. Nut butters. So how you do it, food processor is the best. It does take quite a while because you have to pulse in 1 minute, typically not exceeding 1 minute for blenders, and then for food processors you don't want to exceed more than a few minutes. I think maybe 1 or 2, and so you have to do it at a time to avoid overheating. So it can take like 45 minutes to get a bag of hemp seed down to hemp butter. But the good news is you can do it, and you really don't need anything else. So none of these, sometimes they add like olive oil or some other oil. You don't need anything. You just need the hemp seed and patience and pulsing at the beginning. Yeah, nuts and seeds, whole definitely a trigger for Crohn's, and if not, you have butters are better. But TBD, really. This was just some fact checks on a Gundry video where he presents in 2020. It was great. It was peptide zoomers, and so milk protein mostly 80% casein, 20% whey. Peptides are really good at narrowing down specifically on the peptides of, so you have food, you have a bunch of proteins, and those proteins have parts of those proteins, and those are peptides, as opposed to the whole food, which is not great for food intolerance. Peptides are much better. Still not 100%, but much better. This is why fat can be a problem in Crohn's and why a lot of carb diets work. It's because things aren't handled well in Crohn's, and more fat causes it to go into the large intestine, which then causes a reflex back, which is not what you want, and that causes some nausea. That's why you don't want. And there can be lodging of like whole nuts in your gut, so mechanically, so that's not. Yeah, A2 is pretty much in everything other than American cows, which are A1, and some European cows. A2 is in a lot of other, or A2 like beta casein, yeah. Psyllins, I think they're storage proteins that might get picked up by the immune system. Chewing does help for like IBD or IBS. The more you chew, the more you digest. That applies to healthy people, but also IBS, IBD patients. And then this is the individual. So Nicola's question is, if you have an allergy or some intolerance, can you get over it by preparing the food differently? So the good news is I think it's 47 to 50% of most things, and I think they do milk, egg, some soy and wheat, but if you heat it up, so cook it, you can reintroduce at smaller stages, and then the original food they're okay with. That's awesome. But what's even better than 50%, usually if you look down here in the studies, it's close to 80 to 90%, is if you ferment it. And I think the reason is you have a lot of, when you heat it, it denatures proteins that you would normally react to, and so that helps out a lot, and your body kind of calming down, saying, well, I'm not going to confuse the original protein now, and fermenting it doubles up on that, because not only do you break it down better, you introduce bugs into your, the microbes that break that down for you, and your immune system, we know, talk to those microbes, and so they get along, and then any food that comes in greatly is reduced in like how much you can take. So ferment it, try it out as an experiment. I know for soy, I could not handle soy at all. Now I ferment, so I eat miso. I eat miso with every meal. I've been upping the miso I eat. I would be curious to see how I tolerate regular soy now that I've been upping on the fermented, long fermented miso. But anyways, and I know for wheat you cannot cook through it, so but you can ferment it pretty much fully. Sourdough fermented for more than 24 hours is like pretty much all the wheat germ lectins are gone. They're like not actually visible by measure. So yeah. Alright, IG4 gets in the way, yeah, of IgE, and you need a doctor for peptide zoomers. Google Docs is the best way to freely share. That's what I use. You just share the link somewhere, like on your blog or your YouTube, etc., and it's good. And then glutamine does not help. It actually makes certain diseases worse, like Crohn's or other similar, maybe potentially psoriasis. It could be like, oh, it's closing leaky gut. It also triggers, I believe it's TH17, one of the pathways for inflammation. Most of the time it's either not significant or worse. If you look at the numbers, it's a little worse. So what is the glutamine? Country also doesn't do large amounts of glutamine. He does minimal to no. And then finally, healthy fats. I'll just say, based on my opinion, you want to eat the whole avocado and the whole olive. They have whole avocados, whole olives, and great sources of fats, and you get all the nutrients except instead of just going with the oil, because people react to the oils. Brooke Goldner has something where she talks about just oils being a no-no. Yeah. Awesome.